All right. Okay, so once again, the motion for today's debate is this House supports the efforts to fund the creation of self-driving cars. Now, I will be announcing the assigned positions for each team. Tribe Taylors from Taylor's University will be acting as the government side. Meanwhile, UITM Sri Iskandar will be acting as the opposition side for today's match. So I repeat, Taylor's University will be acting as the government side, whereas UITM Sri Iskandar will be acting as the opposition side. We hope every speaker is clear on their respective team side. Now, 15 minutes will be given to each team to discuss among themselves using their own means of communication. Please note that speakers must mute their microphones and turn off their cameras during the preparation time. Speakers may not try to communicate with the competing team in any way, shape, or form. The 15 minutes preparation time starts now. Hi, I would like to call all debaters back into the main room. Sorry, into the breakout room. Is Taylor's University here?
Yes.
All right. Is UITM Sri Iskandar here?
Yep.
All right. Okay, so the preparation time has ended. Speakers, please turn on your cameras so that we can begin.
Okay. So,
All right. Before we can start the debate, the speakers for Tribe Taylors must state their speaker's position. Could I invite a representative from Taylor's University?
Yes.
okay.
All right. So I'll clarify our speaker position. So I am Mo Goi. I'll be the first speaker. After me will be Jasmine as the second speaker. Clarence as the second speaker, and Jasmine as the final speaker.
All right, thank you so much. Right, the next speakers for UITM Sri Iskandar must state their speaker's position. Could I invite a representative?
Hello. Hi.
Hi.
I'll be the representative. My name is Arif Hakimi. Arif Hakimi Yunus. I'm the third speaker. And then
Alright.
Nadira will be the first speaker. And Amira will be the second speaker. Amira is trying to get the background working, so she hasn't really turned on her camera yet.
All right, so just to reconfirm, Anis Amira would be the first speaker, is it?
Second.
I'm the second speaker.
Second speaker. Could I know who's the first speaker?
I'll be the first speaker, Nadira.
Nadira. Okay, so Fatiha Nadira, right? All right. Okay, thank you so much. So good afternoon to the honorable adjudicators, lecturers, debaters, ladies and gentlemen. Before we start our debate today, please mute your microphones to ensure there will be no disturbance to the floor of this debate. I would like all participants to turn on their cameras for this competition. I am Joshua and I will be the chairperson for this debate. Meanwhile, Shalina will be the timekeeper for this debate. This House would like to call upon the motion that this House supports the efforts to fund the creation of self-driving cars. Now, I would like to clarify the rules and regulations of this debate. For the substantive speech, the timekeeper will ring the bell at the end of the first minute to show that points of information, POI, can now be delivered. The timekeeper will ring once at the beginning of the 6th minute to show that the time for POI is over. The timekeeper will ring twice at the 7th minute, after which the speaker has 15 seconds to conclude their speech. Then, the timekeeper will ring continuously to show that the time is over, and any further explanation will not be taken into account. After both sides have presented their speeches, 3 minutes will be given to each team to prepare for their reply speeches. The opposition will present their reply speech first, followed by the government side. Reminder that no new arguments or POIs are to be presented in the reply speeches. For the reply speeches, the timekeeper will ring once at the end of the 3rd minute to indicate that the speaker has 1 minute left to conclude their speech. And the timekeeper will ring twice at the 4th minute, in which the speaker has 10 seconds to conclude. Finally, the timekeeper will ring continuously to indicate that the time is over. All debaters are expected to have a reliable and good internet connection during this debate. Shall there be any unavoidable circumstances where debaters lose connection during their speech, 5 minutes will be granted for debaters to regain their connection. If debaters fail to regain connection within the 5 minutes, marks will be given according to how far they presented before the connection was lost. A sound check will now be done as I announce the speakers of each team. When your name is called, please test your microphones to ensure you are audible. Please inform the committee if there are any problems or technical issues. Right, so Tribe Taylors from Taylor's University will be acting as the government team with Mr. Mogoyi as the Prime Minister.
Yes.
Right, thank you so much. Mr. Clarence will be the Deputy Prime Minister.
Yes.
Thank you so much. And Ms. Jasmine will be the government whip.
Yep.
All right, thank you. Then UITM SI from UITM Sri Iskandar will be acting as the opposition team for this debate with Miss Fatiha Nadira as the leader of the opposition.
Yep.
All right, thank you so much. And Miss Anis Amira as the deputy leader of the opposition.
Yes.
And Mr. Ahmad Arif as the opposition whip.
Yep.
All right, thank you so much. I shall now introduce our adjudicators, Mr. Shanaf and Mr. Aiman Zaman. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to call upon the Prime Minister, Mr. Mo, to open the case for the government. The floor is yours.
All right. I'll begin my speech. A very good afternoon to the Honorable Adjudicator and also the Chairperson as well as my opponents. My name is Mogoyi as the first speaker of the government. And today, this House will support the motion, which is that this House supports the efforts to fund the creation of self-driving cars. And as the first speaker, I'll be presenting 2 points and to support this motion. Now, before we start, let me define the motion that we'll be supporting. A definition of efforts to fund relates to active initiatives by organizations, government or non-government, to fund, which means to provide money for a particular purpose, and in this case, the creation of self-driving cars. The creation, which means the design and the manufacturing and the actual creation, the whole creation process of self-driving cars. And self-driving cars here will mean cars that does not require constant control by its passenger to function as a car. Now, for my first point, I believe that it is a norm already in the current era of that self-driving transportation is not a new thing. We have automated transportation all over the place. We have automated planes. We have automated technology in boats and also in subways, in trains. It is not a new thing. We have enough adequate experience and also technological levels and abilities to recreate self-driving vehicles and transportations. So why not cars? Automated transportation is definitely not a new thing. So autopilot can help plane pilots in great measures, ships for navigation, and also trains for better coordination with other trains. So this shows how great the precision that self-driving cars can bring to roads and also to the ground level of transportation. And there's also greater control over the transportation, where the things that human minds cannot think of in the case of driving or in the case of emergency, it has greater control over the transportation, where the system knows what's going on in every component of the car and of the vehicle itself. That's something that requires a technician or an engineer to understand, may just be a simple button or a click by the system to inform the passenger or the user. It provides great control, and combined with a great user interface and a user-friendly one, it could create easy access and easy control, better control to the user and the driver itself. It also allows the passenger to pay more attention to other more significant things during a trip. users can pay attention to the road, they can pay attention to the people that's inside, and they can have conversations, meaningful conversations with family members throughout the trip, and does not require full attention on the road and what's in front of them. So it's unarguable that self-driving, to implement it into to cars and to road vehicles, could bring much greater sense of driving, a much greater sense of a journey, a trip to a person, especially those who are sitting inside the car. It would create a better and more secure experience and environment, and it will be give a much more safe experience as well. Combined with all this, not just the technical benefits, but the emotional, psychological benefits that it provides to the car. They can be meaningful bonding experiences throughout the trip. Let's say a trip all the way up to Penang, for example. It could be a great medium for conversations, for bonding time between families. This is all thanks to self-driving cars. The father could pay attention to their kids and also the wife, and not just on the road itself. And also, the second point, yes, you may.
You said that by having self-driving cars, the passenger would be able to more freely communicate with other passengers. For example, a father who is usually driving would be able to take care of the child. But don't you think it's dangerous because of the lack of awareness that the father should pay attention to? Because as plane, the pilot also would still be aware of the driving thing. Yeah.
Thank you for the POI. I think that's a very good point, because it only enforces how important self-driving is. Because with the self-driving technology, one can actually shift their attention to what's happening around them instead of just what's in front of the car. Only with self-driving is able to make sure that everything is safe, because the car takes part of the burden away from the driver, from the father in this case. Let's say the kid starts peeing on his pants or something like this. The father can actually divert the attention to the kid along with his wife or something, while maintaining the vehicle on the road. So I think that's a very good point, and it only helps to support the motion. Now, for my second point, it is human error, which strongly relates to what the opponent just mentioned just now, and that human error is unavoidable. There's accidents that's always happen, whether it's intentional or unintentional. Traffic accidents happen. So intentional, well, there might be a lot of cases like drunk driving or driving with like a poor attention, like you're sleepy late at night. It is actually the number one factor of deaths in accidents, cause of accident in Malaysia, especially in a country with so many highways that connect each states. So it is very important to have this self-driving technology that can coordinate with other vehicles and among its own vehicles. So we can avoid human errors such as breaking traffic rules, those people who are very irresponsible to take care of themselves and the people around them. We can also avoid the lack of attention created due to a substance, food, or time of the day, the condition of the driver. We can all remove all these factors that actually contribute to the increase of risk of accident, and all relying upon the self-driving technology. The car can direct itself without the constant attention by the human user and the occupant and the passengers inside, and therefore creating a much more safer and much more better experience of a trip for the passengers. So I think that strongly reiterate again is that we strongly support the efforts to fund self-driving, the creation of self-driving cars. Thank you.
Thank you so much to the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister spoke for 7 minutes and 1 second. Next, let us invite the Leader of the Opposition, Ms. Nadira, to state the opposition's objections with regards to today's motion. You may have the floor.
Today, the government side is talking a lot about safety. Despite that, they have not specified exactly how it will be safer. Before anything, thank you very much, Chairperson, educators, as well as the timekeeper. So today on the opposition side, we would like to be much more realistic. We would like to be much more in detail of how the conditions are in our world currently for us to actually allow automatic or the self-driving cars to be in our world. Now, we do accept for the fact that the government side says that efforts to creation of self-driving cars would be to provide money from the government and from the NGOs. But at the same time, we would also like to ask how exactly would they funding in terms of the maintenance of it, of the production of it, of the development for the betterment of it. They have not specified exactly how. So we would like to ask the government to actually specify this. And also, they said about self-driving cars, but they do not actually specify how exactly these self-driving cars work. Because for us to determine if it's okay for us to produce it, if it's okay for them to actually be out in our world, in the best state, that will not cause, even so with their own points of safety, in their own aspects of usefulness to us humans as well, they should actually focus on how they work for them to actually create a better version of it. Now, on side opposition, we believe autonomous cars or the self-driving cars rely a lot on sensors, actuators, complex algorithms, machine learning systems, and powerful processes for them to actually work. Now, on-site government today, they did not propose and they did not specify how they work exactly. So in a way, we could say that site government today is just saying these things as if they're just going to fund these, give people money and let them do whatever they want without actually knowing how they're going to do it. That would be very selfish and that would be very wrong, because we would, yes, might have actually make use of the usefulness, make use of the greatness of these self-driving cars as they mentioned before. But however, if they actually don't look at how they actually work, it could turn out very wrong, and in the long run, many other issues. Now, moving on to my rebuttals. For the first argument given by the government, they're talking about values, how human minds can't think straight. They can't focus on one thing. So these self-driving cars will actually give that value of people being able to actually communicate with their family whilst in their car. Now, this is actually very concerning. On-site opposition, we think that for them to have these kind of thoughts. Why? Because for them, let's say they're saying this father can actually focus on their children in the back seat, talking to them, actually communicating while the car is driving by its own. Now, what if, let's say, the car loses control? What if there should be, let's say, technical malfunctions? What if, so they're saying they could focus on the children and not the road. Shouldn't the road actually be the main focus when you are driving? Even if these self-driving cars are able to work on its own, even if these self-driving cars are able to run on the road on its own. Now, that's one thing on site government where it's very, very concerning for them. It could even result in very horrible deaths. Now, also human error. They're saying that we lack the ability to actually control our cars properly. We don't have the actual technological minds to actually do as well as these self-driving cars can do. Now, if you are going to say that, then how come you also mentioned that the highest rates of accidents actually happen because people are drunk driving? Aren't those only because when you are under the influence of drugs, under the influence of alcohol? That's because of your fault and your own disability to be responsible, instead of rather than actually being in your right state of mind, actually thinking, being able to park. If not, people would not be able to drive on the road right now without seeing at least one accident all the time. We have been able to drive on our own on the roads all this while. So their point right there still does not stand. So both of the arguments today do not stand. Now, moving on to my very own arguments. Now, self-driving cars, it is uncertain that their technical aspects are stable. Their technical aspects cover everything, especially when the government is not focusing on how exactly these self-driving cars work. Now, on site opposition, we overlook the situations where there could possibly be hackers. Because how? These things actually work on sensors. They work through GPS systems. They work with the signal. So let's say there could be hackers. People all in the world, everyone, there is no certainty that people around us have all good intentions. Therefore, there could be hackers. And why would there be hackers? I could say for abductions, for drug exchange, even worse, for even opening more doors to easier organ trafficking. That's the part where the site government isn't overlooking. And also then system malfunctions. Like they said, human minds can't think of one thing and they could be able to actually focus on their family in the car. No, because when there's a system malfunction, it could result in an accident. And for our minds to be absent from thinking actually just focusing on our family rather than the road, then these kind of system malfunctions opens the doors to these many more system malfunctions, which will eventually result in disastrous outcomes, accidents, deaths even. And even so, my second speaker will even specifically be talking about how it affects health, not just the mental state. And further on, they did not specify that they support the creation behind it, and also the creation. When you create something, there would be a need for it to be maintained. There would be a need for it to, the technical sides of it, for it to actually be able to work at its optimum state. Now, on-site government, they did not tell us how they're going to actually open up doors for people to maintain this. In the long run, let's say you're on the highway and your car breaks down. But for the fact that they did not actually open up sectors for people to actually know how to maintain these cars, for people to actually know how to fix them. And the easiest way to say it, we aren't totally prepared in the field for us to actually have these self-driving cars on the road. So on-site government, they did not cover all this. They did not overlook this. They're simply looking at the values, and they're simply looking at how great it is, how easy it could be, without actually looking at the storm that's erupting behind. They're looking at the butterflies, the rainbows, and all that, instead of actually knowing, instead of actually thinking. They're not being, on-site opposition, we might sound pessimistic, but for the fact of that, we're looking for a safer, a much more guaranteed future. With that, thank you very much.
Right, thank you very much to the leader of the opposition. The leader of the opposition spoke for 7 minutes and 9 seconds. To continue our debate today, I would like to call upon the Deputy Prime Minister, Mr. Clarence, to counter the opposition's arguments and present his argument. The floor is yours.
Good afternoon to the educators, ladies and gentlemen. The topic for our debate is that this House supports to fund the creation of self-driving cars. We, the affirmative team, believe that this statement is indeed true. Firstly, the opposition team and I will firstly rebut on the first speaker's opinion that the world is a rosy bed. Basically, they were saying that there are no people who are drinking, there's no one who is drunk driving. At the same time, they were also saying that there were hackers in this world. Well, if there are no drunk drivers, then why are they hackers? The fact is that the world is not all rosy. We have to understand that 90% of all accidents today are caused by driving errors. Following that point, we have to understand that we have to fund the efforts of supporting the creation of self-driving cars due to the fact that if you are able to fund, yes?
How do you tell for certain that these self-driving cars will not result in technical issues that could also result in driving errors?
All right. So the fact is, let's look at today's world. You're able to put an aircraft into the air with 900 people in it and let it drive by itself, but you are saying that you are not able to put a simple car with a few passengers on the road. The fact is, putting an aircraft, a plane, basically a metal plane into the air is far more safer than putting a 4-seater car on the road. That is my point on this. Now, we have to look at the fact that self-driving cars are more environmental friendly. It basically saves 60% of CO2 emissions on this planet. Now, looking at this, besides that, at the same time, it is also economically relevant. It is projected if all cars were to be self-driving cars in the near future, we can save 800 billion each year. Now, looking at this, in today's modern world, we do not care about the environment. We do not care about how much we spend. But it is a fact that in the future, if we want a better world, a clean environment, self-driving cars are crucial. Next point, If you are able to fund billions and billions into putting aerospace, aircrafts into the air to go to the moon, to go to Mars, why not spend that money into self-driving cars? If you are able to spend that money into self-driving cars, you will be able to not only save your planet, but also provide a better future for the people of this earth. Adding to that, hundreds of billions of dollars will be lost due to automakers, suppliers, dealers, insurances, parking, other car-related enterprises, personal injury, lawyers, and health insurances. All of this, which could be avoided if we fund more into self-driving cars. Fact is, it is estimated that it will be beneficial for the economy about $600 billion, which we'll be saving on oil and gas. This is a fact because self-driving cars in the modern day society are fueled by electricity. Cars such as Tesla and also brands such as Google aim to make automated cars using electricity. This will not only save us billions of dollars into fuel and gas, but at the same time save the environment from CO2 emissions, which is crucial. Coming back to the environment, it is estimated if we continue emissioning to CO2 continuously, by 2050, our Earth sea levels will rise by 30 centimeters, which will basically, Mauritius is gone.
POI,
Yes?
then why not just hybrid cars?
See, the fact is, you have to understand hybrid cars still run on oil and gas. At the same time, we have to understand electricity is so much more efficient compared to oil and gas. It is projected that sooner or later that every oil and gas industry will be depleted because we do not have enough. It has been billions and billions of years to produce oil and gas, and we humans have used it up almost in 100 years. It is going to deplete sooner or later. We have to understand that we need better alternatives. And this is why we should be funding into the electric and automated cars. Continuing on to that point, we have to understand that automated cars will definitely have a longer lifespan. Why is this important? Because it will save the economy resources. As stated before, insurances, parking, suppliers, all of these are resources. If the car is automated, if the car is running on electricity, all of this is saved by the government. It is able to save the government billions, which can be used to fund many other better things. So it is crucial to state that we have to fund the automated car industry because at the end of the day, oil and gas are going to be depleted. It is true that suppliers will not have enough resources to fund all of this. All right. Now, coming to the last point. As the opposition speaker has said, that, that we cannot estimate everyone to be drunk. And obviously, she said that we have to be realistic. Well, the only realistic thing here is that automated cars are the future. We have automated LRTs, we have automated planes, we have automated, basically every single thing is becoming more and more automated. This will not only save us billions of dollars, but at the same time give economical leverage to the industry. It is also expected that many jobs will be available due to automated cars. With this, we have to fund automated cars. So, dear ladies and gentlemen, the fact is that this world needs to be saved from CO2 emissions. We have to change our ways from our old ways and come into realization that automated cars will be the future. With this, I would like to end. Thank you.
All right, I would like to say thank you to the Deputy Prime Minister. Apologies for the technical mistake. The Deputy Prime Minister spoke about 7 minutes. Next, I would like to call upon the Deputy Leader of the Opposition, Ms. Amira, to have the floor.
Good afternoon to the respected chairperson, the honorable timekeeper, and the fellow educators and members of the floor. So today I will be giving 2 points that will prove that the effort to fund the creation of self-driving cars shouldn't be supported, and also at the same time will prove that the government team is on the wrong side. So the first speaker of the government said that planes and trains are examples of automated vehicles that is already being used in our society. You see, the difference between planes and trains with self-driving cars is that these planes and trains uses a more simple algorithm compared to self-driving cars and automated vehicles. The government team, both the first speaker and the second speaker, have yet failed to specify how these self-driving cars actually work. And the second speaker did not try to fix this problem by further specify about how this car works. So let me tell you the dangers of the self-driving of these self-driving cars. These self-driving cars would cause increased exposure to radiation towards the passenger. This increase of exposure to electromagnetic field radiation can be very dangerous, as it plays a big part in affecting your health condition. It could cause headaches, migraines, inner agitation, chronic exhaustion, sleepiness, and susceptibility to infection. So this not only would affect the passenger health, but also if imagine people who experience these headaches, migraines, and inner agitation during driving these self-driving cars, which again, I would like to strongly say this, that even though it is a self-driving car, the driver should still be aware of its surrounding of around the car, because there's a lot of unexpected variable that could happen on this road. So imagine if the person driving, who's supposed to be aware, suddenly experience sleepiness, chronic exhaustion, migraines, and headaches, and suddenly the car, the self-driving cars, is in a situation whereby it's in a dangerous situation. How does the government gonna propose that these affected drivers gonna control their cars? This will automatically cause accidents on these roads. So more on this danger of exposure to radiation is that some people could develop electromagnetic sensitivity, where they experience sudden sharpness of breath and also fluctuation of blood pressure. Other people could also reportedly develop eye problems from this constant electromagnetic exposure. So now, the opposition team might be questioning, why would this happen to drivers that use self-driving cars, but doesn't happen to plane and train? So, see, this is why understanding how these self-driving cars is very important. The reason why self-driving cars could pose a more greater danger to the person's health is because these self-driving cars uses more electromagnetic sensors in order to be more aware of the surrounding. However, you see this compared to plane and train, which have a monotonous algorithm and a simpler road, which is they just use the one simple one-way road. They only have one road to use, unlike cars. So my next point would be the lack of self-driving law and also regulation. You see, it is very important to have law and regulation, because without law and regulation, these self-driving cars would open up to threats such as my first speaker said, threat to criminals such as drug transportation, human trafficking, organ trafficking. So it's very important to have this law, yet we do not have this. So we are not prepared to have self-driving cars in the market. So the government also doesn't propose new law to control the usage of the self-driving cars. This is also very important. So without this law, how are we going to execute the sentence of, for example, car accident that happened within these self-driving cars? And do you know that the accident rate of self-driving cars is so much higher compared to human driven, which is 9.1 million accidents per 1.6 million kilometer, while human only have 4.1 crashes in the same 1.6 million kilometers. So this has shown that the effort to fund this creation of self-driving cars is very dangerous and should not be supported. With that, I rest my case. Thank you.
Right, thank you so much to the Deputy Leader of the Opposition. The Deputy Leader of the Opposition spoke for 6 minutes and 44 seconds. I would like to call upon the government whip, Ms. Jasmine, to give her speech. The floor is yours.
Salutations to the adjudicators, chairperson, timekeeper, my worthy opponents, as well as my fellow teammates. We as the government fully support and agree with the motion, which is this House support the efforts to fund the creations of self-driving cars. So my name is Jasmine, and I'm, as the third speaker of the government team, will be rebutting all the statements given by the first and the second speaker of the opposition team. Starting with the first speaker, she actually pointed out on how does our self-driving cars work. I would just like to say that the government believes that a lot of companies, as well as the government right now, are working on development of this vehicle. Especially Google have been working on how this autonomous car would work ever since 2006. And even Tesla is also implementing it in their car right now currently. So they do have these features. And I think in the future, we are going to see that all of this is possible, as there is a lot of growing and technology is taking over the world. Next, they also stated about system malfunction and technical malfunction, and shouldn't the road be the main focus? So I would say our point here would be a self-driving car is possible, as airplanes are able to work on autopilot mode. Hence, it is possible for a car which is a much simpler version compared to a plane, which requires a much more complex system with all of the knots and everything, the wind and everything. It would be much more harder to actually have an autopilot system for them. So I believe that car which is on the road is much more likely and possible. Yes?
How would you say plane is a much more simpler when cars on the road have more variable that affect the driving instead of plane, where there's lesser traffic?
Okay, I would just like to say that I think probably the opponents are not aware of how complex it is for a plane to actually operate. It's actually much more complex, as you have the wind, the weather, as well as if you see how probably before the pandemic, how much plane are there flying all over. So meaning that even the pressure, they need to pay attention to the pressure. They need to pay attention to the other planes so that they don't collide, or there's any other birds or anything. They have much more complex situations. So I do believe that they have more variable there, especially the weather are more extreme above rather than on the ground. So with that, I'd just like to further move on to my rebuttals. We do believe that it is possible for cars to be an autopilot mode. However, we do understand that there is a possibility of self-driving cars malfunctioning. Hence, as pilots are able to warn the pilot and after that turn on like a warning system, then only the pilot would actually take over to actually manually control the plane. I do think that what we are trying to implement is it is also possible for self-driving cars to be on an autopilot mode until if there's any malfunction in the system, it could actually warn the driver, and then the driver could actually have a full manual control of the car. Next, they also stated about more on system malfunction. They keep on repeating a lot of system malfunction and how is it working. So I do think that that self-driving cars have risks, and therefore it really side with us and support the motions that we need more funding so that all of these variables and the risk could actually be reduced, and we could actually see a lot of more improvement and less fatalities. And the first speaker also stated she kept on blaming on I think she stated on a drunk driver, and I would just like to say that not all accidents are drunk driving accidents. It's not drinking under influence. There is also people who's a bit sleepy, tired, so they have been driving for quite some time and everything. No, thank you. So I do think that by having the self-driving cars, it actually helps to reduce the tiredness, as they could still have their focus on the road, but not being able, like after they work overnight, they have to pay attention more on the road. They could just kind of just look at the road, but in the same time, just be relaxed in that rather than having all their attentions to it. They can just sit down and chill. Now, I would like to rebut on the second speaker. Firstly, she stated about planes and trains are automated vehicle because they use a much more simple algorithm. This would just, I will just repeat what I said just now. Airplanes require more difficult process and system. Hence, I don't see a point in this. And she also stated about increase of radiation causing headaches and other health problems. I don't think this is applicable, mainly because it's not the only, we don't get radiation just because from the self-driving cars. Even our a lot of machines, our application appliance, or for example our phones, they do still produce a tiny bit amount of radiation. So if we are talking about radiation and how we should not use self-driving cars because of the radiation, then does it mean that we shouldn't use our phone because it also gives us some sort of radiation? Next would be they said that drivers should be aware of the surrounding because of migraine and because of migraine and stuff. So I do think because of this, it supports the motions more. And I would just like to bring an example here. For example, a Lamborghini or Tesla, or there's actually probably all the recent car, they have sensor. So you know, when you are driving and probably you're a bit tired or anything, if you have the self-automated car, it would actually have a sensor that would stop you from colliding to another car. So I do think that this fully supports the motions to actually give more funds to the self-driving cars. And just to elaborate a bit more, even Tesla makes sure that the driver has the driver attention is on the road, even on the autopilot features by sensor, by having beeping sound every time they didn't sense emotions, or they would think that the driver is asleep. And with that, I would just like to reinstate my stand where we as the government fully supports the motion, which is this House support the efforts to fund the creations of self-driving cars. Thank you.
Thank you to the government whip, Ms. Jasmine, for the points given. The government whip spoke for 7 minutes and 9 seconds. Next, I would like to call upon the opposition whip, Mr. Arif, to present his case. You may have the floor.
Hello, can you guys hear me clearly? Or is it muddly? Can you guys hear me clearly?
Yep, we can hear you.
Oh, all right. Thank you very much. Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon. I'm sorry, good evening to the chairman, fellow juries, and honorable timekeeper and members of the floor. Now, the motion that has been put forward for today's session of debate is this House would put effort into funding self-driving cars, and we, opposition side, oppose this wholeheartedly. Now, I won't waste any time. I'll go on to the rebuttals, okay? First and foremost, the Prime Minister clearly stated that they have much greater control over their transportation. However, the Prime Minister and the government side has failed to state what sort of system of learning or algorithm used to support that there is a greater control over their transportation. Now, this is crucial. Why? Because as far as we have read and as far as we have known, there is rote learning, adductive learning, inductive, deductive learning, and many more ways of learning for artificial intelligence, which, as a matter of fact, impacts the artificial intelligence used in every certain, let's say robots, cars, aeroplanes, what have you, okay? So now it seems like as if we opposition side are explaining to the government side what actually should be specified in terms of the algorithms used. Okay. Now, moreover, we can also agree that artificial intelligence has perception that is different than human beings when they are driving the cars. Let's say driving the cars, doing anything, any certain activity. Okay. So not unlike human beings, unlike humans' perception. And that is a very big difference between AI's perceptions and also humans' perceptions. And perception is absolutely large. It's absolutely crucial to avoid minute details that can cause huge issues that lead to accidents or any arguments or also have you. Okay. But furthermore, artificial intelligence in anything is limited to its own field of view, which relates back to its own perception, its own algorithm, and what has it been taught by us very humans who we have our own weaknesses. Now we're trying to teach the artificial intelligence our own algorithms, which can by large miss minute details, which can lead to bigger accidents. Now, and this is what my first speaker has been trying to propose to the government side. Please specify on this, the algorithms taught to the AI, okay? Now, the Prime Minister also said that artificial intelligence takes the burden away from driving, but I would like to question that there is a reason why there is an emergency lane at the side. If you have issues, if you have emergency, just stop at the side and settle your issues. Does this justify that you have to fund such a large funding just to take away this so-called big burden that you guys want to solve, when we, as our just manual drivers, can just stop at the side of the lane that is already prepared for us? So do we need this large funding? I don't think so. We beg to differ on that. And this is why we believe that our opposing side should be considered as the truth. Next, Deputy Prime Minister also said about aircrafts being put on the air, but self-driving cars cannot. Okay, but you have to understand that but aeroplanes are not fully driverless. Okay, the traffic is different, the drivers are different, the algorithms are different, everything is different between algorithms. Okay, and then you have to understand that pilots are trained pilots, are professionals in their course in comparison to us drivers who are driving cars, which is mandatory as our own living skill. Okay, so pilots are professionals doing what they are doing as a professional. We are drivers just doing this as our own mandatory skill to get from one place to another. Okay, now also the Deputy Prime Minister also stated about saving gas. But are you forgetting something? That about building rechargeable stations for your artificial intelligence main cars, you have to build these rechargeable stations, right? To recharge your, let's say, the cars that are using these batteries. Okay, so are you going to use electrical sources only to build these stations? Or are you going to use the oil and gases, right? So which one of these are you trying to support? Doesn't this contradict with your support of this wholehearted advocation of electrical energy supply when you're trying to build these stations, which also use oil and gases too? Right. Now on to my LOP, my leader of opposition said about unsettled technical aspects. And this, I go back to the perception of artificial intelligence. Not only that, perception of color, perception of touch, perception of vision is all so different. And this is why we oppose this motion today, ladies and gentlemen. Besides that, we also believe, like my second speaker has stated, increased exposure to radiation, yes, to electromagnetic exposure. Sure, it might not be as big as radiation exposure to our phones. Yes, okay, it might not be as big as that. But this is really crucial. Is the government actually ready to allow self-driving cars that can induce such danger to physical and mental health? Is that all right for you guys to actually propose that, to advocate that? And this is what government has failed to propose, unfortunately. Okay, and not only that, okay, my second speaker also stated about the lack of self-driving law and regulation that involves drug usage and whatever driving under influences usage. Okay, and that can be apparent because when you're in your self-driving cars, now you have no clear vision of whether the person is actually driving is actually under influence or not under influence, right? And okay, I would like to also add about unemployment issues also. Just a little touch on that. If that's true, you want to propose self-driving cars, how about unemployment issues on people who are doing Grab, who are doing Uber right now? It is a very big situation now, right? Especially in the pandemic right now, in our situation, where we have to advocate and help out the economy of local workers who are clearly taking on these side jobs on Grab, on Uber, these side jobs because they are not financially stable, unlike us. So are you trying to propose unemployment to them too? Okay, so I won't talk too much about that, but I hope that, ladies and gentlemen, members of the floor and jury and timekeeper, all of you understand the crucial aspect of this. And now conclusively, we can say we allow self-driving cars only with the term that the government actually overlooks the crucial aspects coming from it, the technical aspects coming from it, the specifics. Then would we allow that to be proposed? But from what we see now, unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, this future side of the government talks about something that is incredibly vulnerable, an artificial intelligence, not only the self-driving cars, but as an artificial intelligence housing that is incredibly vulnerable and not specified. And that is what we opposition side would believe from today. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for listening.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Arif. The opposition whip spoke for 6 minutes and 52 seconds. Now, 3 minutes will be given to both teams to prepare for their reply speeches. Your 3 minutes starts now. Ladies and gentlemen, your 3 minutes are up. Right, so this debate will resume with the reply speeches. Let us invite the opposition to sum up the case for today's debate.
For anything, am I clear enough to everyone?
Yep, can hear you.
Today, we debate on the fact, on the grounds that the government is rather thinking of positivity, of the great things. That's great. It's great to be positive. But however, for them to actually not oversee the actual crucial points, the actual crucial situations, the crucial aspects that we have to look over. Now that the future that they're proposing to us is very vulnerable and even so very dangerous and scary to us. Now, on side opposition, we would like to be very realistic. We would look at the crucial importance behind these self-driving cars that they propose, these self-driving cars that they support, in which we also would allow, let's say allow instead of support, for the fact if the government actually recognizes the crucial parts of it. Now, first of all, I'll be talking here looking at the side of government and how they have proposed to us today very vulnerable and dangerous sides of these self-driving cars. They're talking about value, human error, economical aspects, environmental, and all of these don't stand in any way because of the fact that it can eventually become vulnerable. Number one, for value, people will become less aware of their surroundings when driving. While self-driving cars, although not completely, this is even mentioned by them, does not require control all the time, which means partially the person driving it should have and be aware of the surroundings when they are inside and driving and controlling the car. And also then human error, our lack of ability to be able to do things properly with our driving cars. Now, again, you would rely on this autonomous entity, this autonomous individual to actually drive you, you actually trust this when there is a high possibility of there to be a mechanical issue to it. Now, they did mention on how they understand how it should work and how it would work and how they want for it to become better. But that was only then proposed by the third speaker, which technically would be wrong here in this debate. Now, economical aspects. They are saying, they're proposing that these self-driving cars, yes, they would be electrical. Yes, it will be environmental because they're electrical, but a car does not have to be self-driving for it to be electrical. Therefore, their argument of our environmental aspects and how great it would be environmentally would, well, obviously not stand there because it doesn't have to be self-driving for it to be electrical. And then economical aspects. You would need to have charging places, and to build them, you would need oil and gases. Then again, the use of more oil and gases for production of these stations would eventually just demolish their environmental aspects from it. So economically, no, it's not all that great. And on side of opposition today, we're realistic. Why? Because we're thinking about the vulnerability. And for that fact alone is why on side opposition today, we totally do not stand with the fact that there should be support towards the creation of self-driving cars. And with that, I thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Nadira, for summing up the opposition's case. Lastly, we would welcome the government to sum up their case for today's debate. The floor is yours.
All right, thank you. Thank you again to the opponent and also to my teammates. And as for the reply speech, I would like to say, ladies and gentlemen, let's look into the future. Let's leave our history and make it as a lesson to us instead of what stops us from progressing into the future. And to us, automated cars are the future. The benefits of the automated cars, self-driving cars, actually overweigh so much of the risk and the potential accidents and potential implications that the opposition has brought. I would like to reinstate our definition of self-driving car, is that we are not supporting fully automated cars, but cars that don't require constant control, constant attention by its passenger or its driver. And we would like to say that planes have autopilot, submarines have sensors and everything. why not just apply it into cars, which is much more simpler or much more directional, much more usable and affordable for the common folk. We're bringing the great benefits of the automatic transportation to the common people, to each and everyone, every single individual, and not just pilots and not just submarines and everything. Greater control over the vehicle, the precision, the accuracy that digitalizing it can bring is way greater and far more greater than the risk that it brings. Hackers and everything, that is something that we can deal with, and we can do more research and give you more effort to looking at. But the thing is, we shouldn't be restricted by the risk and by the implications. Such as human error, it's unavoidable, and whether it's intentional or not, it is a fact that it happens, and it always happens. We always see them on highways, on roads. So why not implement something that can avoid everything once, one shot? Just eliminate the human factor, a human error out of it, and there we go. We have a safe environment for driving, and also its environmental impacts and its effects and the benefits that it could bring to every single area of the industry, whether it's the selling area, whether it's the environmental implications, the waste management. It is all so good. It overweights the risk so much that we should really focus on it, and it is the future. It brings about so much environmental benefits. It brings about so much reduction in waste and cost. It is basically money falling off from the sky. And I would like to say that the risk, we admit that there are risks and there are implications, and there are also things that we cannot consider, we cannot look into and plan it everything and tell the AI to do everything, tell the system to plan it out. Yes, there are shortcomings. Yes, there are limits. And yes, there are problems that might come when we implement this system, which is, of course, we are not prepared for it. We are definitely not prepared for it. But that is why we need more funding. That's why we need to support more funding, more effort into funding the creation of such a system, and not just the car itself, but the entire system, the entire grid, the entire infrastructure that to support self-driving cars. Because self-driving cars are more than just self-driving cars, more than just four wheels that operate on its own. It is the entire environment and the entire infrastructure that we want our kids to live in, we want our grandchildren to live in, we want Malaysia to progress into. And that leads to a better quality of life, that leads to a better environment, a greener environment, and a better driving experience for everyone, for each family as well. So that I rest my case, and we say that we fully support the effort of funding the creation of self-driving cars. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Mo, for summing up the government's case. Ladies and gentlemen, that marks the end of today's debate. Honorable adjudicators will be directed to another breakout room where they could have 10 minutes to decide on the winner of this debate. Adjudicators, please hold on for a minute whilst you are transferred to another room. I think we're allowed to talk, right? That's not your cat, right, Arif? Is that your cat?
No, it's not my cat.
Just from Instagram.
Yeah, it's so cute.
He took it from Instagram.
It looks so real, like
No,
from
I
my
think-
screen.
No,
It's so real.
because the background cut the.
God.
I'm holding a tablet right now, but I don't know why.
Oh
cuts
my
out the
God, it
background.
looks so real.
Why? It looks real, right? I don't know why. So
Cute
fat.
though.
You know, just now when you were like, oh my God, no, it's from IG, I was like, tipu, impossible. Because it looks that real.
It's just what I see.
Hi everyone, sorry to kacau. We would like everyone from the teams, from the both teams, to move to the main session. We want the adjudicators to be in this room. Sorry.
How
How to move?
we never use Zoom actually.
I think on the bottom right side, you can press leave room,
Oh,
and then
okay.
it
Yeah,
will.
yeah.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
All right, see
very
you guys
much.
later.
Thank you, opponent team. Great debate.
Thank
Yeah,
you. You guys
you
too.
guys too.
Okay, so we're gonna discuss, right, in this room, or what?
Why are you always here, Kavi? I think so. Wait, your name's Ayman, right?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, sup, man? Okay, Namala, I think we discussed it on our own. Okay, so
Sorry,
Yes,
we don't
yes.
have we have terrible technical issues, so separate rooms
Okay.
are not provided, so you guys have to bincang here.
okay.
Okay, good.
Wait, Kavi is here though. Can we kick him out? I don't like him.
I will bincang on WhatsApp.
You can Kavi and Alicia can tunggu kejap.
Okay, I'll
Let
discuss
them,
it on first. All right. Okay, so Ayman, first off, who do you think won this debate? I think that's the-
So I gave my initial call is to give it to Gov, but then
Okay.
like I'm willing to change my mind if we go along with the discussion. How about you?
Okay. All right. For me, I think it would go to Gov, to be honest. I think that was the last one the one that I would settle on. But to
Okay.
be honest, man, I thought it was a pretty messy debate lah, because a lot
Yeah, I
of the
thought it was
arguments
pretty messy.
a lot of the arguments that they gave for me weren't really developed very well and not very convincing, because it didn't really tie back to the motion. Like, I think what we really wanted from this debate from both sides is basically from government. We needed to know their justifications as to why we need to support the creation of self-driving cars, right? And why they
Yeah,
did give a
basically.
you can talk.
Yeah, basically most of their besides from the safety aspect, which came out in the Prime Minister's speech, the
Mhm.
second speakers, all of the arguments were well mechanized and they made a lot of sense. But
Mhm.
since it was mostly related to like electric cars rather than self-driven cars,
Yes.
I couldn't credit it as much. But since it was left unrebutted that much, like
Mhm.
whereas if the op came up here and said,